Good morning, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. So happy to have some time with you today on this Tuesday. Oh, no, it's not Tuesday, is it? It is Wednesday. There you go. On this Wednesday, whatever day it is, happy to be together. We are, as usual, YWTV is bringing you another great and important conversation, as we are all about educating and inspiring our community and keeping people linked and connected to important conversations. And this is definitely one. For those of you that don't know, April is one of those months that there's a lot of highlighting happening for different areas, and one of them happens to be Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And it's an annual campaign to raise public awareness around sexual assault and educate communities and individuals about how to prevent sexual violence. We obviously do this work at the YWCA year round, but during this month, as I said, we have a special campaign that really focuses on these conversations. I just want to start our broadcast by making sure that everyone does know that if you are a survivor of sexual violence, or you know someone who is that needs support or help, please encourage them to reach out to Healing Space, which is a free service for them of support, 201-487-2227. There's also a Healing Space app that you can download and have text to chat support from our hotline. Our Healing Space team, as well as, for me, we spend a lot of time working with, areas that are connected to sexual violence. And one of them, which we've had lots of conversations about over the course of this year on YWTV, has to do with human trafficking. And human trafficking is a broad area with a lot that's covered in it, but within it, there obviously is a component that is connected and can be connected to sexual violence. But it is broader, than that for sure. And we'll be talking about that a little bit today with our guests. I'm so grateful to have joining us today representatives from a wonderful organization that's here in our community that we wanted to make sure you knew about and could connect with yourselves, which is Partnership to End Human Trafficking. And I have with them today their founder and board member, Elizabeth Koldyke Boolbol, and their executive director, Jamie Manirakiza. How did I do? Manirakiza. Okay, got it. So happy to have them both with us. We'll share a little bit about our guests, and then they can talk. We'll talk about the organization and the work that they're doing and human trafficking in general. So Elizabeth is the founder and board chair. She has an array of public relations and marketing expertise through her extensive experiences in Chicago, LA, Colorado, and New York. Upon settling in Greenwich, Connecticut, she led a real estate development business of building and selling single-family homes. She now devotes her time and talents to philanthropic causes and raising her family, which includes 4 children. Is that 6 dogs? 6 dogs. Maybe one will make an appearance today. 2 cats and a ferret. She's also an active volunteer and serves World Vision, Fairfield County Chapter co-chair, and the Greens Farm Academy Advisory Council, where she is now on the board of directors. She also serves on the Parent Association board of Stanwich School with the role of president in her last year, and as an elder of Stanwich Congregational Church in Greenwich. In 2015, she became the founding board member of Project Blessing, a long-term initiative at the Stanwich schools that has built a water system and a community school in Rwanda. Elizabeth has a passion for global justice, and that compelled her to launch this organization in 2015. And Jamie has over 10 years of experience in the field of anti-human trafficking as the executive director of the Partnership to End Human Trafficking. She brings her experience working in various roles throughout the Northeast. Prior to joining the organization, Jamie held several key roles with the Salvation Army. Her longest position was in Greater Philadelphia as the director of anti-trafficking for the New Day to Stop Trafficking program. And most notably, she helped to start a drop-in center for women victimized by the commercial sex industry in 2010, incorporating models of harm reduction, motivational interviewing, and the sanctuary model for trauma-informed care. Jamie also was part of the founding team to open up the residential program for survivors of sex or labor trafficking in the greater Philadelphia region. In 2018, she transitioned to work as the Territorial Anti-Human Trafficking Program Coordinator for the Salvation Army Eastern Territorial Headquarters in New York. Two very impressive women with a lot of important experience that they brought to this work, and we're so happy to have you here with us this morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. Community awareness is such a key piece of this whole fight, so thank you.
It absolutely is, and the connections are important. I actually had the opportunity to meet Elizabeth probably way too many years ago now to even attach a number to, through a mutual friend and who's on their board as well, and learn of the important work that they were doing at the time, and it has just grown exponentially since then. So it's wonderful to be able to catch up and share with our community where they are now. So Elizabeth, let's start with you. So can you tell a little bit to our viewers about why you got involved in founding this organization and the need that you see for addressing human trafficking here? I know we often hear from people that they don't think this is something that's happening in their communities. It's happening in this country. Very often people seem to think this is something that's happening elsewhere. So it's always good to remind people otherwise.
Right. Well, like you, I shared that misconception. When I was working with World Vision, I did many mission trips with World Vision to, developing countries where I witnessed, trafficking firsthand. And it was devastating, obviously, heart-wrenching to see young girls in the sex trafficking, sort of industry just kind of in your face. But like you, I sort of felt like that's where it was happening. But upon returning, we did a lot of education with Women of Vision with our chapter, and we invited speakers to come, specifically CIRI, which is the Connecticut Institute for Refugees and Immigrants, to come and speak to us about the problem that's actually happening domestically. And this was very eye-opening to me. And I learned that it was happening at an alarming rate, and that it was just the business is so profitable and so immense that, profit just drives the growth. So this was something that just I never left my heart. I have two girls, two boys, young children. I've always, ever since college, been, an advocate for women and, an advocate against exploitation of women. It's just something that has always broken my heart. And I always say, whatever breaks your heart is something that you should try to change. So upon learning that, it's just something that was just stuck with me. And then I read Nick Kristof's book, A Path Appears, and I learned about Thistle Farms in Nashville, Tennessee, and this amazing domestic program that was happening to help women restore their lives. I went down to Nashville to actually see it. And this organization's been doing this for decades. They started 20 years ago, and they've helped hundreds and hundreds of women go through their program. And I was so in awe of it, really, at what they've done and how they've been able to help women. And then the more I learned about the issue, I just felt like I needed to do something. So, I came back with my pastor of my church at the time, and I said, I think we can do this. I think we can replicate this program in the Northeast tri-state area. And she agreed. She had done work in Hungary, and she'd done work in Tennessee as well. So she, helped me. We formed a board. And that was really kind of the beginning of it. We invited women from Thistle Farms to come to Connecticut to speak and to teach people what was happening. And we hosted screenings, we hosted workshops. We really needed, as you said, Helen, to erase this misconception, to address it, to get people to understand that this is an enormous business, and it's happening right under our nose. It's happening in New York, it's happening in New Jersey, it's happening in Connecticut, in our suburbs, not in just impoverished areas. But, Jeffrey Epstein, as tragic as that was, brought a lot of attention to this issue kind of at the right time we needed it to. It's happening in Palm Beach. It's happening on Fifth Avenue. It's happening, right under our nose. So that was just the beginning of it. And as we need the Thistle Farms is a residential program. So they have homes that Becca Stevens, bought a home and invited women in and just created a loving community atmosphere around these women, very individualized, understanding that their needs, if they don't have shelter and they're not safe and they don't have adequate access to healthcare and access to food and access to love, they're just not going to ever be restored. So that was the cornerstone of her organization. And then she has a social enterprise that's attached to it to offer economic opportunity. So they have a thriving bath and beauty product company, and all of the employees are survivors. And so within 6 months of being invited into the restoration program, they also have job training, and that creates a really sustainable model. So the first thing we did was to create a social enterprise, because unlike Jamie, I'm not a social worker. I don't have social service background. I would be the wrong person to minister to these women and to create a program. But with my marketing and business background, I knew I could start the social enterprise. So we started a pet retail social enterprise. All of our products are handmade by survivors. And that was really also a way, in addition to the education piece, was to market our brand and to market what we're trying to do. It was a way for us to get out there before we had the residents. And then we were very blessed when Jamie agreed over the summer, after about a 2-year courtship, to join our organization and lead us. And at that point, when we realized we had Jamie at the head, we could buy a home, like we could take that next step. But until we had that leadership in place, I felt like that would have been premature to sort of spend the resources, have a home without the leadership. So when she, I think it was July, when I was blessed with the call that said she was willing to take this on. So she came on full time in July or August. And then we, in September, found a home, closed, and legions of volunteers have helped us to get it ready. And we were able to open our doors in January. So it's been a whirlwind, but just a blessing all over. I mean, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. And we now have women in residence, and we've helped so many. And Jamie can elaborate on sort of the program part of it and what we've been able to accomplish in the last, 6 to 8 months.
So wonderful to hear the evolution, and important for our viewers to hear it as well, because, very often we see these programs functioning and think that they just appeared, and don't really understand what went in to make them happen. And, we always encourage people from the communities to get involved and sit on boards and sit on development committees, and help support the resources needed for organizations like yours and like ours. And it's good for them to hear what actually goes into it. And wonderful that they have in you, such an advocate to bring it along. Jamie, question for you before we jump into the details of the, it's so wonderful to hear where things are and hear more details about that. I always like to spend a little time on this, even though we've talked about it on this show before, because I do think that, again, human trafficking is one of those statements that people may think they know what it means, but they may not understand the full extent of it all. So can you just talk to us a little bit about what is human trafficking and everything that, is under the umbrella of that, and how, that transitions, into the work that you're doing now with this new stage of the organization?
Sure. Yeah. And it's been awesome as well to be alongside, a true startup nonprofit, and being in the nonprofit world for a number of years in a few different states. You see a lot of folks wanting to start programs, and it has been amazing to have such an active community board and just connections. One of our board members, as we got connected to the YW, is in North Jersey, and just seeing the impact that we have in the region has been really awesome. So in terms of just defining trafficking, before we talk about, who we're seeing, what we're doing, trafficking, just for any viewers out there, is obvious. It's happening here in the United States. It's happening in every community, without doing like an intense sort of definitional training. Trafficking has two forms: sex or labor trafficking. We focus a lot on sex trafficking, although there is an extreme prevalence of labor trafficking in the U.S. And there's a lot of misperceptions as well around identification of labor trafficking cases. So I'll talk maybe briefly about that, but to pivot and to talk a bit about sex trafficking, what we often find is there's commercial sexual exploitation of adults or minors, male, female, LGBTQ, domestic or foreign nationals within the United States. So there's sometimes a misperception that trafficking victims in the U.S. are primarily foreign nationals because they must have been brought here or smuggled here for that purpose. And although that happens, we've served individuals already since opening who are foreign nationals. The majority of the individuals we've served to date are actually domestic, born and raised here in the US, and were recruited by a trafficker, or sometimes what is more in a street term like a pimp, or what survivors will most often identify is a boyfriend, or a fiance, or a partner, or a friend, right? Sometimes the actual terms that survivors use, especially when you're first maybe meeting that individual, are not it's not going to be my trafficker or a sex trafficking. They almost never self-identify, which is part of the challenges of identifying sex or labor trafficking. And actually, I think that transcends the United States as a challenge, right? It's really an international issue around the complexities and the coercive control that traffickers use to sort of recruit, groom, and maintain those that they're abusing, right? It's all wrapped up in that, which is why so often trafficking is a really challenging crime to have hard and fast numbers and statistics on, because it's not, one of your typical above ground crimes. It's really an underground organized criminal enterprise. And so trafficking has sort of three elements to it. It starts by an act. Somebody's recruited online in a Facebook or social media forum, or on Snapchat, right? The internet is sort of the new street corner, has been said. And or they're obtained, they're transported, they're harbored, but it's not all of those things. It might just be one of those things, right? So sometimes we think survivors or victims are moved across a bunch of state lines, and although that happens, and we see that frequently, that doesn't have to happen for somebody to still be considered a victim of domestic sex trafficking or labor trafficking. And then it's through the means of force, fraud, or coercion, and then for a purpose of sex or labor trafficking. So that's really the basic overview.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to do that, because again, I think sometimes people think they know what is encompassed under human trafficking, and they don't always understand the details. And quite frankly, the coercive piece is important to also understand, because we're definitely a people that are quick to blame, and not understand the dynamics very often of what goes into, how offenders do pull in the victims, in these cases. So obviously, we know that the numbers are high, and that this is a very prevalent, issue in our communities. Tell us a little bit about your organization's work now and how you are identifying the people that you're working with to support, and how you're supporting them.
Sure. So I can jump in on that. So we have already received, I want to say to date, a little over 15 referrals. We began sharing with community partners that we opened up our residence in January of 2021. So only 3.5 months ago. We opened our doors mid-month after we hired our staff. And we've received to date, yes, over 15 referrals. We have a 4-bed transitional home, so women can stay free rent, all of their needs provided for 2 years, up to 2 years. And it's really meant to be a strong, as Elizabeth shared from our founding organization, Thistle Farms, that we're a sister organization to, an opportunity for women to really make that life transition and have long-term sort of healing and a future after they leave this home. So what we've also done with individuals who we can't house in our home because we have received more than we can bring in residents is we have a community survivor advocate that works with individuals outside the home and provides essentially all the same wraparound comprehensive services in the community than just not bringing them in residence. So also triaging their housing needs with local resources. We also have helped to relocate folks. I was just on a call yesterday with federal agents that are working to relocate a young mom who is a survivor, a victim in a case testifying against her traffickers, and needs to be relocated due to safety reasons. So these folks reached out to us because they just know of our work and they know of our connections. And so we're helping to relocate that young person to a home here in the region as well. And, individuals have also relocated from different parts of Connecticut, New Haven, Massachusetts, We've relocated somebody to our home from California. So we really take a regional and national approach in terms of accepting referrals from anywhere. We've received our referrals from law enforcement, FBI, Homeland Security, as well as from self-referrals or local substance use providers as well, just reaching out to other continuum of care providers and helping them to see that like these are folks who might be within your midst, very likely within your midst, that you may or may not be identifying. So we do some education. And then we say, if you identify these red flags or these indicators, give us a call. We're happy to provide some added support because these folks, maybe have experienced trafficking.
Well, it's wonderful to hear the depth of the resources and the connections, and how you can support the individuals in your program. And I have to say again, because I have spent a lot of time talking with Elise, who's obviously one of your board members, and meeting Elizabeth. So I don't want to say so many years ago because that ages us, but a while ago, talking about the evolution. To see and hear where you are today is really a true testament to your founders and your board that really kept to this, because it's no small effort to bring yourself to the point of having a residential program. And for those watching, this is really when we talk about trying to support individuals that are been impacted in this area, part of the reason that they really have a difficult time getting out of this world is because they don't have places like this to go to. They don't have residential opportunities. They don't have ways to get themselves back on their feet to be able to create a life and income and residence and relationships, and separate from, what they have been pulled into, because by the very nature of the offenders, they cut them off from everything in their lives so that they are so dependent on what they were brought into. And if they didn't have this type of lifeline, they really, they're not able to start anew. So, these programs are so very important. And as I've shared, on this broadcast before, and we've had guests from the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking, which I happen to be a member of. It's so key. We do all types of advocacy, put legislation in place, try to put, resources and programs for supports. But at the end of the day, residences and wraparound support is one of those pieces that is very necessary, but not very common yet. So, we not only need to support this program, but we need to help replicate it, for sure. So with that, can you all tell me a little bit? I mean, obviously, in the short period of time that you've gotten everything up and running now, and you're already seeing so much activity and so much happening. What are your plans to happen next? I know that we all in the nonprofit world tend to dream big, for sure, because we have to. It's called to us quickly from those that we serve. So we're never just focused on what we're doing. We're always thinking about what's next. So Elizabeth, tell me a little bit, what are you and your board thinking about, and your community groups to support what you've created here?
That's a great question, and one we're going to address at our board retreat this summer. My vision is big, Helen. I mean, it's a big vision. It's a vision to sort of take the whole tri-state area, the whole I-95 corridor, and have, as you said, residences. There just is a dearth of beds. That was our needs assessment in starting this organization, was there are just no beds, particularly for adult survivors, which are the survivors we serve. There are options for underage. There are some programs, and there's DCF, obviously. But really, there's just nothing for adult survivors, and that's really the Thistle Farms model, and that's their sister network. And we want to really take, and these women are moved, we're not a Connecticut, we were based in Connecticut, but we're not a Connecticut-based organization. We have women coming to us, as Jamie said, from all over the country, because movement is a key, as you said, to their instability. They're moved quite often. So, so that's, we want to, and we would love to have an emergency situation. We're not right now equipped to take in a woman who's right off the street who needs emergency shelter. That's not what we can offer right now, but we want to incorporate that as an extension of our model. But we want to have homes literally all over, all up and down the I-95 corridor, so that we can help women rebuild their lives. There's just so many. And as you it's rightly said, they just can't get to the next phase when they've been abused and had this sort of trauma from almost inevitably since the time they were under 12 years old. The first assault, the first trauma really almost exclusively happened before the age of 14. So they don't have the post-traumatic stress disorder, the trauma that they've been through. They just need more than, a 6-month program or a 30-day program. It's just not enough, honestly.
Yeah. And, for those of you watching, I mean, think about that developmentally. At 14 years old, it can be where this starts, where your kind of, normal development halts, right? So it really is so much more than, residential support that's needed, although that is key, but there's so many wraparound services needed.
They never had a chance. They just never had a chance.
Absolutely. But thanks to the work that you're doing, we're definitely giving them more of that chance. Jamie, can you just, I definitely want to talk a little bit when we wrap up about how people can get involved, which for, again, those of you watching, we have the links in the comments here, so you can connect to the Partnership to End Human Trafficking on their website. We have been flashing on the screens how you can connect with them on social media. They're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, and they're on Twitter. I do encourage you to follow them, to share their posts, and to learn more about their programs and how you can get involved and be supportive. Jamie, for our viewers, though, can you just remind them, because again, this is happening all around us. And, very often, you're going into a nail salon, you're going into, stopping in a coffee house and there's a car outside. What are things that people should be looking for? Because this is happening all around us. What are some signs to be thinking and helping connect people to resources if we think that they're being exploited in some way, whether it's someone in your life that you have come in contact with or just something that you're seeing and viewing around you?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, for sex trafficking, I would say if you have access to young people, like not access, but like you have teenagers who have friends, educating them that this is a risk, educating them about online forums and safety around who you communicate with and who really could be behind a screen. A lot of things that are quite similar, and even just educating this month around sexual assault awareness can transcend into recognizing the signs for grooming around sex trafficking, but also just recognizing that if you see a young person who maybe doesn't have access to a lot of resources, and then all of a sudden they start showing up with a lot of new clothing, new items. Maybe they talk about an older boyfriend that you don't really think goes to their school or is, outside of school, right? So recognizing just some of those red flags that can be part of the grooming phase, because oftentimes traffickers first pose as somebody who cares for that person and wants to provide for their needs. And that's how it begins to present, right? Or if they're older and somebody has maybe substance use, recognizing that sometimes they're being controlled by their trafficker or by a drug dealer through that substance use to then be forced into those commercial sex acts, and recognizing that it's the transfer of anything of value, not just money or cash, right? So anything of value can be somebody being forced to provide sex for a place to stay or a place to sleep, or for food or shelter, substances, whatever it might be. And then for labor trafficking, just recognizing those control factors around work situations. I think also just questioning your own, using your own sort of mindset around if you're paying somebody to do landscaping and the fee is this, and you see 5 people showing up and you see how many hours are at your house and you kind of add up what you paid, questioning like, am I even paying enough for those people to be getting an hourly rate? Like just doing some quick math. Like we hired some folks for construction, and I was like adding up how many days I saw them at our house every day, how many guys were here, and I was dividing out what we're paying. And then I'm thinking about supplies cost something too. Like what are they being paid, right? Because it's often the labor that's being squeezed. And then having conversations about know your rights. Just letting people know like, hey, I don't know if this is happening to you or not, but here's some information about some rights that, I just try to share with people that I know, or you could even say, I follow the YW, or I follow PEHT, or I follow these other organizations that are dear to me. Like, just wanted to give you some information in case you know anybody who might need this information. And also passing along the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is, if we want to put it up in the chat, it's 1-888-3737888. And there is also a text line, so you can even text it, or survivors can do self-referrals and text it. It's called Be Free, so BEFREE. You can text to that number and get 24/7 resources, and they'll connect with organizations like us, I'm sure the YW and other just organizations that are part of human trafficking coalitions all across the country 24/7.
Yes, and we'll be putting that information for you in the links here so that people can connect to them. And I do appreciate you sharing, that detail about what to look for. Again, it's happening as close as, people in your life, and also, different services and, that you're using around you. So it's a mindset of being able to think in both places and spaces from a prevention perspective. And I do encourage our viewers, again, if you have young people, we have so many wonderful organizations just around our community that have raised these topics and are talking about this in our high schools. Quite frankly, we've had, in Bergen County, some pretty big busts, that were connected to education that was done in the high schools, and, young people that made the connection after hearing about the issue, and led to some, pretty large scale arrests. So prevention, is key. Education is key. Talking about it is key. Making it not a taboo subject, but making it something that you are, bringing up with the young people in your life, with everyone in your life. As I always share, the whole point of YWTV is to bring conversations into your home. What you can do from there is to continue the conversations. You can take this broadcast, you can share it, take it through Facebook and send it in Messenger, post it on your Facebook page, copy the link, text it to somebody that you think should hear about this work. You are part of a solution if you are taking that step, which actually doesn't take much on your part, but can save a life. So please consider doing that. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Jamie, for being with us today and sharing so much important information. I'm so happy to hear about the evolution of your program, and eagerly watching and supporting you all, as you know, both the YW and me personally, to see that you continue to grow and add more resources, because we know that they're needed.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the time and the exposure. It's really important.
And for those of you that are joining us for the remainder of the week, now that we've established that it's Wednesday and not Tuesday, they're days. We have 2 more great broadcasts for you starting tomorrow at 11 a.m. As you know, if you're a regular of if you're a regular of YWTV, on Thursdays, we share the mic now with Black women in our community to amplify their voices. And we have a wonderful conversation planned with Jacqueline Ridley. So I'm looking forward to talking with her, and you all getting to learn more about her work, and her life. And on Friday, we'll be talking to the Women for Sobriety founder, Dee Waddington, and talk about that important issue. Obviously, this quarantine has put a lot of stress and pressure on individuals, and obviously we know that this is a long-standing challenge that many people are dealing with daily. And so Dee is going to give us some great information about the issue and resources that we can connect to. And we do encourage anyone, just 2 quick announcements. One, as we know, it is our Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Please connect to Healing Spaces Facebook page. There's a lot of great programs that are still happening from now to the end of the month that are, again, we do this work year round, but we're highlighting certain programs around prevention and education and support resources for around sexual violence. So we encourage you to go to our Facebook page and connect there. And also, this is the month also at the YWCA where we focus on our stand against racism. And unfortunately, there's so much happening around us that just calls for this part of our mission to be more engaged And so we encourage you to be watching our social media for some important events that we'll be hosting over the next few weeks. One around supporting our AAPI communities and having some conversations about how we can support them during this time. We also have a program that we'd like any women of color who are any BIPOC women in our community that are small business owners, whether you're starting a business or trying to continue to grow one, to consider joining our Eureka program, which is to help connect you to coaches and support and funding, ways to be able to help develop your business in particular. We know that one of the top ways to eliminate racism is creating economic equality, and we are committed to being able to make strides, in that area. And with that, we also ask you to think about joining us on April 29th at 7 p.m. for Racial Justice Awards, where we will be honoring people in our community that are living our mission of eliminating racism and promoting peace, justice, and freedom. So with that, thank you all for being with us today. Thank you again to Elizabeth and Jamie. We do encourage everyone, as I said, to amplify this conversation. You know how to do it. It's very easy. And also to follow them and learn more about ways that you can get involved in supporting the great work that they're doing and help to grow it, because the need is out there. Thank you all. Have a